Hi there and welcome back to this week's trade recap, and this week price action has been somewhat phenomenal, so let's just get right into the trades that we took this week. Here on Monday I didn't have a strong bias, but we were forming the entire day and we formed this trend line liquidity, so in my opinion this would be our drawn liquidity since we are rejecting these highs and we inverse this to the downside with a V shape. So this to me is bearish. And if we go on a 30-second, here we note that as I've talked in the previous trades and I've talked about this in the previous week, when we have an inversion after we have passed the trend line, that is quite good. So here on the 1 minute, we left this 1 minute fair value gap that I would take as an inversion if it got inversed. And we delivered from the 5 minute up here. We swept this 1 minute high and we inversed this 1 minute with quite some good momentum. So because my draw on liquidity was this, we were past the trend line, we trapped the trend line again, we delivered from the 5 minute. This was a trade for me to take, and I did take this one, which I ended up getting wrecked. But as you can see, this just was some bad efficiency because my draw on liquidity, my bias was right. We ended up going to the level that I had targeted. But sometimes we just don't win, which doesn't mean we have done something wrong. Before this one that I did take, we could ended up taking this 30-second because here we were indeed bearish and this was a really good trade for us to take. We retapped the 15-minute V-shape recovery and we were still bearish. And this was the best play of the day for us to take. Skipping Tuesday, since I didn't take a single trade, and going into Wednesday, this was my draw on liquidity. And if we did inverse this 5 minutes after taking this, my bias would be quite higher. But focusing on this draw on liquidity, if we go zoom in on the 1 minute, right here we see that we took all this liquidity down there. We swept these relatively equal lows and we delivered from this side. Because our draw on liquidity was higher and we were having some bullish order flow, this was what I wanted to target. So I wanted to take a long to this, and this is a huge fair value gap, which I usually don't take, but in my opinion, because this was such a good draw on liquidity, a high inside the fair value gap, and we have this market maker buy model on the lower time frame, this to me was a easy break even. So I did take this trade on this inversion on the 1 minute and went break even really quickly. Ended up getting stopped at break even and the trade went to my draw on liquidity. But I'm not mad about it because this would be the trade that I will take. I will need to take something to the 1R, and this trade never ended up going to the 1R, so it's good. Something that I want to talk about is that here on the 15 minute, when we did inverse that 1 minute, we also at the same time on the same candle inversed this 15 minute to the upside. So this really means that we are bullish and that this is our draw on liquidity. So I didn't need to go break even so early and so quickly. I could have waited for this one, and in a day where we would have some more efficiency, we could have taken this high and given me a win. So that's something to remember on the next trades. After it, we did have this 1 minute inversion that I wanted to take since we swept again internal, but this isn't the best, and we did have a big candle through it, which made this trade invalid, so that's just something to note. We did have some good opportunities on Thursday. We had a 2 minute long and a 1 minute short that were quite textbook, mostly the short, but I ended up not taking a single trade on that day. So we will just fast forward to Friday. And here on Friday, I was somewhat bullish because we are already 200 points away from all-time highs. And the thing that I find most interesting today is that we swept this low inside fair value gap, which makes this an intermediate term low, and we inversed this fair value gap to the upside with a lot of momentum and speed, which means that we are somewhat bullish. But because today was Friday and this isn't the best place to be in, since we are still holding this 1 hour and we are still holding also this bullish 1 hour, I didn't like these conditions for today. But if we go here on the 3 minute, right before open, we had this one. And something that I noticed is that right here we have equal highs, and we could target the 1 hour consequent encroachment of this week for a higher target, because if we rejected a level, it would probably be the CE of this week. If this was really a rejection block, we would respect this area. So this was my target. And the problem here is that I did take this 3 minute to the upside, but here on NQ, the wick isn't that big. The wick is just somewhat normal. And because this trade is right at open, instead of placing a hard stop loss here, I would place a hard stop loss in the swing low. But if we switch to MNQ, we see that the exactly same wick is so much different right here. As you can see on MNQ, the wick went right below, and I closed my trade around here. Top Step didn't even let me close the trade when I wanted to. I would have a bigger loss than I had. But on NQ, the trade was valid. We still didn't tap the swing low, and we were still holding the 3 minute. And I closed my trade around here for a 25 point stop loss, and when we got right above the 3 minute again and we were still having a valid trade, I took the trade again, and it did right up to the target. Clearly, it ended up being a green day, but it's just a small win because we had one loss and one win, and that's just really that for this week. We still handed the week red, but in my opinion, I think the price action this week was really clear, and I could have taken a lot of good trades, but that's something for us to remember on the next week. And just as a case for that, as you can see right here, we swept this external liquidity, which was somewhat of a trendline liquidity. After it, we swept internal, and we inversed this 1 minute to the upside with such a good momentum, and our bias here would still be bullish because we inversed this 1 hour and we want this 1 hour to hold, and we respected this hourly BPR, which is a strong PD array, and with a lot of momentum we inversed this 1 minute, and it rode just with such a good efficiency to the upside. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.